Emily, thank you. And breaking right now, the Justice Department filing charges in a foiled Iranian plot to kill President-elect Trump ahead of the election. The criminal charges were unsealed today. And so it brings us to a Friday afternoon. I'm John Roberts in Washington. This is breaking news, Sandra.
All right, John, good to be with you. I'm Sandra Smith in New York. This is America Reports. According to those charges, the charging documents, an unnamed Iranian official in the country's Revolutionary Guard reached out to an asset in the U.S. in September to put together a plan to kill Trump. Jillian Turner's live at the State Department. She's got the very latest on that for us. Hi, Jillian.
Hi, John and Sandra. A few weeks ago, the intelligence community revealed that the Iranian regime had been plotting the assassination of then former President Trump, now President-elect Trump. And now, as you mentioned, the DOJ has just filed these charges, specifically indicting one Iranian man and two of his associates here in the United States. What they hoped to do was execute the president-elect right here on U.S. soil. Take a look at what the DOJ's filing reveals. It turns out that back in September, an Iranian official asked 51-year-old Farhad Shakeri to focus on surveilling and ultimately assassinating Trump, referred to in the documents as Victim 4. Shakeri indicated this would cost a huge amount of money. And in response, the Iranian official said, quote, "We have already spent a lot of money, so the money is not an issue." Then in October, the plan got fleshed out further. An Iranian official directed Shakeri to give them a plan within a week, quote, to kill Victim 4. If Shakeri was unable to put forth a plan within that time frame, the IRGC, the Iranian government, would pause its plan to kill him until after the U.S. presidential elections. Now, recently, we asked at the State Department here, they said they are tracking this as a top national security threat. They've been following the investigation and the intelligence like a hawk. Listen.
We consider this a national security matter of the highest priority. We have made clear that should Iran attack any of our citizens, including those who continue to serve the United States or those who formerly served, that Iran will face severe consequences.
We also know, Sandra, from senior administration sources that President Biden himself believes and instructed his national security community to treat any concrete assassination attempt against President-elect Trump as an act of war, meaning should they take kinetic action, it would be responded to by the United States, and we would officially enter a war footing against the government of Iran. Sandra.
Got it. Jillian Turner on that, live at the State Department. Jillian, thank you. John.
All right, now back to politics. Republicans pledging to turn the country around after President-elect Trump has delivered a huge mandate from the American people. And now it seems the White House is softening its tone toward Trump after years of warning that a Trump election would destroy democracy in this country as we know it. The White House getting pressed on Biden's shift as President-elect Trump continues preparations for his return to the Oval Office. Trump making history with his first cabinet appointment. Fox team coverage on all of this. Karl Rove joins us in moments on the Democrats' soul-searching after what happened on Tuesday. Bill Melugin has got the latest on President-elect Trump's transition process. But first, the Jackie Heinrich, live from the White House, on the president's apparent change of heart and the White House's inability to account for it. Jackie?
Well, John, President Biden directed his entire administration to work with the Trump team to ensure a smooth and orderly transition. He even invited Trump to the White House for a sit-down ahead of the handover, legitimizing and welcoming the man whose candidacy, he said, would destroy democracy as we know it. And it's giving whiplash after he said all of these things. That was then followed by "we're going to be okay." But listen to what everyone's been hearing for the last few months.
Donald Trump is a great threat to our democracy.
Don't give them the power. Look, are they a threat to democracy? Yes. Are they going to take our rights away? Yes.
Donald Trump is an existential threat to our democracy and our most fundamental freedoms.
President Biden has been clear-eyed about the threat that the former president represents to our democracy.
President Biden didn't offer any explanation for why he's now saying we're going to be okay. So we asked the press secretary yesterday.
this administration message to millions of Americans that they're going to wake up the day after the election if Trump won and have their rights stripped away, that democracy would crumble, and the president said today we're going to be okay. So how do you square that?
Well, now you're just twisting everything around, and that's really unfair. No, it is. No, Jackie, it's unfair because I've been standing here trying to be very respectful to what happened the last two nights ago. Being respectful.
Well, leaks from inside the administration show that the struggle is worse behind closed doors. According to Axios, quote, a former Biden staffer dismissed the Harris team's criticisms as making excuses for the vice president's failures. How do you spend $1 billion and not win? What the F? Harris herself tried to cheer up staff on a call after the loss, telling people that so much good came of the campaign's efforts. But according to that same report, the message, quote, didn't resonate with some Harris staffers. It was detached from the reality of what happened. We are told the fate of democracy is at stake, and then the message was, we'll get them next time. Today, President Biden is leaving the White House via motorcade as he heads to Delaware for the weekend. So we will not have another chance, John, to ask him exactly how he got from point A to point B. John.
Well, it would seem that what they were saying then compared to what they're saying now in regard to Trump being an existential threat to democracy just might have been, to borrow a phrase from the president, malarkey. We'll see what other folks have to say about it. Jackie Heinrich for us at the White House. Thank you, Jackie. Sandra?
President-elect Trump tapping Susie Wiles as White House Chief of Staff, making her the first woman ever to hold that position. Let's get to Bill Malugin. He's reporting live from West Palm Beach, Florida for us at this hour. So, Bill, what do we know about her?
Sandra, we know she likes to keep a low profile, and she's widely liked and widely respected both by Donald Trump and his inner circle. And she's going to have one of the biggest jobs in his White House, which is controlling access to future President Trump. So let's talk about her background a little bit. This is what we know about her. So Susie Wiles was obviously the campaign co-chair for Trump's 2024 campaign, which was just a wild success, winning on Tuesday night. She also served as Trump's Florida state director back in 2016. She worked for Ron DeSantis and Rick Scott, and she was also a scheduler for President Ronald Reagan back in the 1980s. And on election night during his victory speech, Trump expressed gratitude to her for the amazing run. Take a listen.
Let me also express my tremendous appreciation for Susie and Chris, the job you did. Susie, come here. Come here, Susie. Chris. Come here, Chris. Susie likes to stay sort of in the back, let me tell you. The Ice Maiden. We call her the Ice Maiden.
And another name that's obviously floating around that's going to be part of Trump's administration is Elon Musk. And a senior Ukrainian official confirms to Fox News that Elon actually joined a call on Wednesday between President Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Ukraine uses a lot of Elon Musk's Starlink technology, both for civilian and military purposes. And that senior Ukrainian official tells Fox News about that call, quote, it was a very good call. Our work continues. So notable there that Elon was on one of those first calls the day after the election with Zelensky. We'll send it back to you.
Very interesting. Bill Malugin live out of West Palm for us. Thank you, John.
All right, Sandra, let's bring in Karl Rove, former White House Deputy Chief of Staff and a Fox News contributor. So a lot of soul searching, as Jackie Heinrich was pointing out, going on in the Democratic Party as to how they got here. Bret Stephens in the New York Times had an excellent column. It was titled this: a party of prigs and pontificators suffers a humiliating defeat. He goes on to say, in part, the politics of today's left is heavy on social engineering, according to group identity. It also increasingly stands for the forcible imposition of bizarre cultural norms on hundreds of millions of Americans who want to live and let live, but don't like being told how to speak or what to think. We should point out, Bret Stephens is a conservative. He voted for Harris. But I don't know if you saw that column, but it was an excellent dissection of what went wrong for the Democrats this election.
Yeah, I thought it was a great column. And, you know, if you're a Democrat today, you're wondering what the heck happened. And, you know, lots of reasons why it went wrong. But the ultimate is that Joe Biden came into office promising that he would be a normal president, a transitional figure. He literally campaigned with younger Democrats and said, I'm going to be, the transitional figure, and a new generation of leaders like those that are sharing the stage with me are going to take over. And instead, he came in and became interested in being the most transformational president we've had since Lyndon Johnson or FDR, according to White House aides. And that was a direct slap at two people, Barack Obama, whom he's never forgiven for having supported Hillary Clinton, and Bill and Hillary Clinton, again, for never having forgiven them for having taken away the prize that he wanted, the Democratic nomination in 2016.
Right. So David Axelrod said this about the loss yesterday. Listen here.
The party itself has increasingly become a smarty-pants, suburban, college-educated party, and it lends itself to the kind of backlash that we've seen.
So it's pretty clear, Carl, that the party that believed it was the party of the working class in America is no longer that.
Yeah, it isn't. Take a look at the take a look at the Fox poll. If you made more than $100,000, you voted for Harris. If your family income was less than $100,000, you voted for Trump. Who would have thought that the party of the working man and working woman, the so-called Democratic Party, would be in a situation where it depended upon the wealthier in the country, and the Republican Party, the party of the big rich and capitalism, would depend on would have its victory depend upon those that are less affluent in our society. And I think David Axelrod was absolutely right. And I think part of the reason was economic, because working class people were hit harder by inflation than the wealthy. And I think also working class people were more practical and commonsensical, and the idea of the sort of the nuttiness that we saw of men participating in women's sports, or men being able to use women's bathrooms, or providing gender treatment and surgery to men who wanted to transition to be into women in state prisons, which was they had Kamala Harris on tape supporting that. That just didn't jihad with the common sense view they had of what life ought to be about.
Yeah, so Donald Trump sort of did an in-your-face to Mark Cuban, even though that probably wasn't his ultimate intention. But remember what Mark Cuban said on The View the other day. Listen here.
Donald Trump, you never see him around strong, intelligent women, ever. It's just that simple. They're intimidating to him. He doesn't like to be challenged by them.
So in sort of the coup de grace in terms of piling on Mark Cuban, Trump yesterday named Susie Wiles, who was the epitome of a strong, intelligent woman, to be the first female chief of staff at the White House.
Yeah, well, I'm not certain it was a direct response to Cuban. It's a nice comment on how wrong Cuban was. Yeah. Look, I don't know her, but I know people who've known and worked with her for years, and she has an impeccable reputation for being smart, able, effective, thorough. And she obviously did a terrific job, along with Chris LaCivita, in running a campaign. We've seen two of these previous Trump races. We know how complicated they can be, how divisive they can be, how chaotic they can be internally. And she and Chris put a discipline on this campaign that made it the best of Trump's three campaigns. And a lot of credit goes to her. And the chief of staff needs to be somebody who has the total and complete confidence of the commander-in-chief, and she obviously does.
Yeah, she said that one of her jobs is going to be the gatekeeper for Donald Trump. Maybe not so much of an open-door policy in the Oval Office as there was during the last administration. Carl, great to see you. I hope you have a good weekend. It's been a long week.
You bet. Same to you.
All right, thank you. Sandra?
All right, a judge granting special counsel Jack Smith's move to drop the federal election interference case against President-elect Trump. Will the state cases see the same fate? That is a huge question right now. Former Assistant U.S. Attorney Andy McCarthy will break it down for us. Plus this.
There was a guy in the train saying that he's ready to go to jail. He was going to harm people in the train. So a guy who stepped in, and now he's holding him down.
Audio of 911 calls played out as Marine veteran Daniel Penny back in court today in the subway chokehold case. Judge Jeanine Pirro up next on...
Veteran Daniel Penny is in court again today. One witness telling the jury she used her 5-year-old son's stroller to barricade and protect him as Jordan Neely was moving around erratically, and that she was relieved when Penny stepped in to stop Neely. Co-host of The Five, Judge Jeanine Pirro is here. You've been following this very closely, Judge. First,
Yes.
your top-line thoughts on this.
Well, what we're seeing today is the prosecution putting on witnesses that they believe will prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt that Danny Penny either recklessly caused the death or with criminal negligence caused the death of Jordan Neely. I'm not so sure about it. They had some off-the-chart witness who called Danny Penny a murderer and an abuser. The defense then made a motion to dismiss for a mistrial, I should say. The judge apparently denied it. I'm hoping there was a curative instruction of some way or striking of all that testimony because Penny's not charged with murder or charged with being an abuser. I mean, that's just off the charts. But what these witnesses are all saying, and I have it in front of me, is the woman with the stroller said he was bent at his knees and his body was projecting forward. She has a 5-year-old in the stroller. She says, I can't get away. And then you have other people who say, you know, this didn't look like a normal problem. He said, I'm going to kill a mother effer. I'm ready to die. I don't give a damn. It was loud. It was disturbing. It was frightening. One witness after the other.
Wow.
So the issue here is, what is Danny Penny's state of mind? It can only be established by what those witnesses on the train say, because Danny Penny then sits in the minds of those people. He can defend them only to the extent that he can defend himself, and he can only harm Neely to the extent that he's entitled to use that force against Neely.
What are the implications of this 911 call, Judge, from inside the subway car? Let's play it out.
I don't know. He's trying to attack everybody.
Oh, a guy's trying to do it. Okay, give me further description. Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Indian?
He's black.
What color is he?
They're holding them down. They're holding him down right now. There's one man holding white man holding it down, holding the homeless guy down.
Okay, no problem. They have to identify the color of the person who's holding him down. The problem is that the prosecution ran with it, Sandra, and they allowed the whole testimony of that witness to refer to him as the white guy while they're outside yelling subway strangler.
Wow.
Now, in my courtroom, that would never have happened. I would have said, counselor, have your witness identify who they're talking about. Do they see him in the courtroom? And from now on, he has a name, Mr. Penny. And that's an indication of all of the gamesmanship that's going on. But understand, this case will have ramifications long beyond what happens in a nondescript courtroom in New York City. This is like the Bernie Goetz case from like 40 years ago. The issue of how much New Yorkers can defend themselves, given the lack of police, given the fact that crime is out of control.
Or given you're trapped in a subway car, right?
Yes, moving underground.
Exactly. So this is a New York Post quote on Penny's team's attempt to push for mistrial. I'll put it up on the screen. Which was denied by the judge.
Right.
Penny's lawyer, so after jurors were sent home for the day, Daniel Penny's lawyer, Thomas Kniff, asked the judge to declare a mistrial based on prosecutors' alleged incendiary opening statements. And for allowing witness testimony to reinforce the narrative that Penny was a white vigilante.
Okay. The fact is that the court allowed and the prosecution allowed for the reinforcement of this white guy vigilante. I think what the court should have done is the court should have stricken the testimony of the person saying it. The court should put the prosecution back on their heels a little bit. This case is about a particular crime that occurred on a subway car. This is not about America or what's going on in New York City. And I'm surprised the judge didn't strike the testimony. I understand he doesn't want to agree to a mistrial because then they have to start all over again. But that's very damning testimony. And it's the undercurrent in the courtroom that they're going to be faced with. And that's not what this case is about.
Wow. I truly believe that the country is watching this really closely to see what happens here.
And by the way, there was an African-American holding down Jordan Neely along with Danny Penny. So, and most of the people on the subway car were African-American who were afraid, or minorities.
Those witness accounts are going to be key, obviously.
They are key.
All right, Judge, thank you very much. Okay, we'll see you on the 5 tonight. John?
Sandra, Veterans Day just around the corner, and that means it is time for former President Bush's annual Warrior Bike Ride. The former president spoke with our own Dr. Mark Siegel about the importance of caring for our nation's veterans. We've got that story for you from Prairie Chapel Ranch in just a moment.
And will the Biden White House try to replace a justice on the Supreme Court before Inauguration Day? Fox News legal editor Carrie Orban shares her thoughts.
There was pressure on her before this election to step down. We all have the rewind of remembering Justice Ginsburg and how much pressure was put on her well into her 80s and how it made her dig in and stay. There is a lot of potential peril.
Honor those who have risked their lives to protect our country. Fox News chief medical analyst Dr. Mark Siegel is joining the ride for the Veterans Day tradition. He's live at the Prairie Chapel Ranch in Crawford, Texas. How's the day going so far, Doc?
Amazing, John. We went almost 3 hours on the bike. Veterans wouldn't give up. Indomitable spirit, which we all need to see right now, led by former President Bush, who absolutely wouldn't give up, was testing himself on the hardest trails, and it was coming together. Vets helping each other up hills. If somebody fell down, they helped them get up. This was like the same spirit as the military when they're in active combat they brought here. I was very, very inspired by this, as was everyone in the ride. Take a look.
Person comes out of combat and deals with the danger and the darkness of death, and sometimes it's hard for them to get their feet back on the ground, and this is a way to do it because they're riding with people who've been through similar circumstances.
You know, I talked to President Bush. We had an interview after the ride, which is what you just heard, but he also got granular and talked about a program that the Bush Institute is doing called Check-In, where they're reaching out to vets that are in Team 43 to see how they're doing. Contact us if you're having trouble, especially mental health issues. Take a look.
This is obviously focused on vets initially, but yes, we've assembled some of the smartest minds in terms of helping people deal with post-traumatic stress. We've connected them with peer-to-peer counseling groups, which enable somebody to get the confidence to seek help.
You know, President Bush talked about extending that to America. Maybe we all need a program like that. This is the beginning stage of it. I asked him about his prescription for America. He said, religion is love. There's a lot of kindness in this country, President Bush said, and we're going to be okay. Back to you, John.
Yeah, Dr. Siegel, it's Sandra here. I just love this. We've been showing some of the video of the former president leading those veterans on this ride and yourself as well, and just really beautiful stuff there. Dr. Siegel, part of the story is those veterans, they need that sense of community when they come home. You know, they're together at all hours when they're on their deployments or wherever they're stationed, and they come home and it's hard to get that sense of community, that tightness back. And so much of this is what that is about.
Sandra, you are so right about that. And it grows. It's almost like a positive version of an infection. People infecting each other with a positive spirit and then extending it to people that didn't know about it before. 4 of the people on the ride today had never been here before. They hooked up with alumni who invited them. And it grows around the country, Team 43, to all of the activities that the veterans are doing to help each other. You know, as President Bush told me today, you don't know if you haven't been there. They've been there. They've been in combat. They can relate to each other and they can help each other. And we can be inspired by that with Veterans Day coming up.
You know, one of the big issues with people coming back from deployment overseas is the extraordinary rate of military suicide. The military is recognizing the risk to a much greater degree, but programs like President Bush's, I'm sure, also help on that front.
Absolutely. And that's, you know, something we call the invisible wounds of war. Mm-hmm. Post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury leads to depression, leads to anxiety, and it's also stigmatized in this country, so people don't come forward. And this inspires people to come forward. We're encouraging everybody to come forward, not just vets, not just the war fighters, but everyone. We have to get past the point where mental health is stigmatized in this country. It is the number one war injury is the invisible wounds of war, post-traumatic stress and related mental health issues. Number one. And we have to pay attention to it as a country.
Dr. Siegel, such important work you're doing there, and a big thanks to the former President Bush as well for what he's doing, giving so many of those veterans hope. Thank you for this.
Thanks, Doc. Appreciate it.
Thank you. He's a very kind guy. Thanks a lot. Really inspiring. Thank you.
It looks like he's in good shape, too. Fox Corporation partnering with U.S. vets to make camo our cause to help prevent and put an end to veteran homelessness in the United States. Join us this Veterans Day, November the 11th, and help solve this problem. Shop for camo at go.fox/US vets or follow that QR code on your screen. You can also simply wear camo, snap a selfie of yourself, or make a video and share your camo on social media using the hashtag #HonorUSVets.
Love that. LSU is going to have a live tiger. We can now confirm that right here on hand for Saturday's big game against Bama at home in Death Valley. The LSU Tigers plan to have a live tiger at their namesake stadium for the first time in nearly a decade. Governor Jeff Landry is bringing the tradition back, and he joined us earlier to tell us how it's going to play out.
This is about tradition. This is about from Mike 1 through 6. We have had a live mascot on the field like many other colleges have before. And of course, we're honoring those mics, and no one is going to take away the honor and the respect and the love that we have for Mike the 7. Our hope is that maybe we can get this tiger to roar a couple of times, and that'll indicate how many touchdowns we'll have, and it'll be more than Alabama.
Well, there's a lot of excitement building around this, and for anybody who shared concern about it, the state surgeon general did issue a statement saying, quote, "We had numerous discussions and took every step to ensure this was safe for the tiger. I spent several hours with the tiger last night, and you could tell he was comfortable around people and enjoyed the attention. He's in great health, well cared for by his owners, and socially acclimated. As both a veterinarian and medical doctor, I couldn't think of a better way to literally and figuratively be a tiger." Go Tigers, John.
You know, University of Colorado's got Ralphie the bison that they run around at Folsom Field every game.
They sure do.
Why not bring back the tiger?
And this is the last time the tiger was on the field. They're in Death Valley, and the cheerleaders on top, and we're going to see this again this weekend. It's going to be a big return to the field for a huge game against Bama, John.
And hopefully no one will get eaten. All right, except for the opposition. All right, the White House and Senate are decided, but control of the House is still up for grabs. Can Republicans secure a trifecta?
Plus, Special Prosecutor Jack Smith making moves to end cases against President-elect Trump. Was this election a referendum on lawfare? Former Assistant U.S. Attorney Andy McCarthy thinks so. He is up next.
We may get a supermajority in the House and the Senate if these coastal elite liberals continue their thought process
with it. And President Trump and Congress were ready to work with him. We're going to turn this around, and you're going to see a lot of hard work.
That was National Republican Congressional Committee Chairman Richard Hudson, who was optimistic on our show earlier this week. With the presidency and Senate majority decided, all eyes now on the race to 218 House seats to see who is going to control the lower chamber. Republicans now just 7 seats away from holding that majority as well after flipping 6 seats. Our senior congressional correspondent Chad Pergram on Capitol Hill. Chad, how long until we have the final answer here?
Maybe a couple more days. We'll see. Republicans are, however, inching toward the majority in the House. It's about the math. Right now, there are 211 GOP seats, 199 Democratic seats, 25 seats remain uncalled. The magic number is 218. House Republicans believe they might have the same narrow majority they have now.
We still have a great opportunity to flip Alaska from Democrat to Republican. We're leading. Nick Begich, our candidate, is ahead right now by a number of points, but they have a slow counting system there called ranked choice. So, you know, we're probably going to be in the 221 to 223 range.
Democrats are still not conceding the House. They believe they flipped a seat in Oregon and held a deeply red district in Washington. But some Democrats say it's for a reality check.
No, come on. We no longer have to act positive in order to keep people fired up for the election. The election happened. I can look at numbers as well as anybody else can. I do not feel confident about the House.
In the Senate, the GOP expects to have at least 53 seats. That's a gain of 4. Republican Dave McCormick knocked off 3-term Pennsylvania Democrat Bob Casey yesterday. But Casey is not conceding.
I'm not sure exactly whether there'll be a recount or not. There's, 30. I'm up by 32,000 votes. It's been clear for some time that the math didn't work, that there was no path to winning for Senator Casey.
Now, Casey says there are about 100,000 ballots which need to be counted. The only outstanding Senate races right now are in Arizona and Nevada. Both Democrats Ruben Gallego and Jackie Rosen lead in those races. John?
All right, Chad Pergram with the update for us. We look forward to the final count. Chad, thank you. Sandra?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Special Counsel Jack Smith has now set a deadline of December 2nd to give an updated report on the status of the election interference case against President-elect Donald Trump, moving in the direction to officially drop it before Trump takes office. It's also expected Smith will have to drop the Mar-a-Lago documents case as well. Andy McCarthy is a former assistant U.S. attorney and Fox News contributor. Andy, great to see you. What does this all mean?
Well, Sandra, they're taking the position that the longstanding Office of Legal Counsel guidance at the Justice Department basically says that you can neither indict nor prosecute a sitting president. They are conceding that President-elect Trump will be certified, that is, at the joint session of Congress, which, as we all know now, is on January 6th. His victory will be ratified. State certified electoral votes will be ratified. He will, for all intents and purposes, be a sitting president as of January 20th. And they're taking the position that under those circumstances, the cases shouldn't go forward. They could have suspended them, but I think they're taking the position that this is dismissal. And I think that underscores that lawfare was really all about preventing Trump from winning. Now that he's won, there's no point in it.
Some even might make the case that it helped him win, right? And backfired on them. Andy, you make the case in your .com piece about Trump's victory should be the death knell for Democrats' lawfare. I'll put it up on the screen. One would hope that the lesson Democrats take from Trump's sweeping victory is that lawfare is un-American. Voters were clearly disturbed by the Democrats' practice of using law enforcement and judicial processes as a weapon against their chief political adversary. Democrats would do well to assimilate that lesson and to avoid pressing ahead with lawfare after Americans returned Trump to the White House, despite these allegations. Do you think they learned their lesson?
Well, I think it would be convenient to learn it because they'll be the chief beneficiaries of it over the next 4 years. You know, I think if we all can take a second to step back and see that this was not only an un-American strategy, that it was not only Banana Republic stuff, but that it actually turned the voters off. It inured in the end to Trump's advantage. And now, going forward, it will be Trump who will be running the Justice Department for the next 4 years. So I think it's in the Democrats' political interest as well as their legal interest to pile lawfare on the dustbin of history.
Very similar to your piece, Trump lawyer Alina Habba said this on Wednesday night with Jesse Waters on how this lawfare backfired on Democrats. Andy, listen.
We see the DOJ turning on their own like they did with Joe Biden, saying that Jack Smith should step down. You know, they lost the election for them. I truly believe that. America's tired of it, and I think they said that in the polls. These cases need to be dropped. We need to move on. America needs to heal.
And America needs to heal, but also America needs to have faith in our judicial system. Do you think that can be restored, Andy?
I think we'll get a better sense of that in about a few days, Sandra, because there's a state component to lawfare as well. Judge Juan Merchan, who is the presiding judge in the so-called hush money case in Manhattan, is supposed to rule next Tuesday on Trump's motion to vacate the guilty verdicts, including the immunity claims. So we'll get a good read on whether the lesson has been assimilated by the end of Tuesday when we see what Judge Chutkan does, because if he denies Trump's motions, he has signaled that he may try to sentence Trump by November 26th. I sure hope that doesn't happen, and it would certainly cut against my idea that they've learned the lesson.
All right. So as far as for now, we can report that these cases are falling apart. Is it your prediction, Andy, and your understanding that they go away altogether?
I think the federal cases do, and I'd be surprised if the Atlanta case, the Fulton County case, didn't collapse of its own weight. Primarily, Sandra, because it was a bad case to begin with. But at this point, it's so bogged down in issues of disqualification and immunity that I don't see it getting up and running again. So the ball game right now is the New York case. And the smart thing there would be to dismiss that as well. And if not, at least allow Trump to appeal any ruling against him on immunity. So that would tie that case up for years on appeal, and we'd probably never hear of it again.
All right. Andy, great to see you, and great to see you here in studio in New York this week for the election.
Thanks, Sandra.
Yeah. All right. Have a great week.
Cuối đời thứ 16. Cuối đời thứ 20. Hàng tiếp theo, bóc 21 mũi đơn được sợi màu xanh. Cuối đời thứ 5. Cuối đời thứ 10. Cuối đời thứ 15. Cuối đời thứ 20. 21 mũi đơn. Hàng tiếp theo, 2 mũi đơn ở chung một chân. Tiếp theo là 3 mũi đơn. Mong như vậy cho đến hết sợi màu xanh. Ba mũi đơn. Hai mũi đơn vào chung một chân. Móc tất cả 5 lần như vậy. Ba mũi đơn. Hai mũi đơn vào chung một chân. Chuyển sang sợi màu xanh để móc. Hai mũi đơn vào chung một chân. Tiếp theo là 3 mũi đơn. Móc tất cả 5 lần như vậy. Ba mũi đơn. Hai mũi đơn vào chung một chân. Hai mũi đơn vào chung một chân. Tiếp theo là 3 mũi đơn. Tiếp theo móc một sợi màu hồng. Năm mũi đơn.